Hey, vinyl community, happy Thursday. As you can see, I am joined tonight by my good friend Gary from Physical Format Rock and Roll. Tonight, we're just going to have a general music discussion. We've got a couple topics that we want to discuss, but it's going to be very informal, going to be kind of just a free-for-all discussion. But one of the things that we do want to talk about is the Get Back. What are we calling it? A docu-series, I guess now. It used to be a movie. Now it's a 6-hour docu-series on Disney Plus. First night is going to be Thanksgiving night, actually.
Is it Thanksgiving night or the night after?
That's the 25th, which I think is Thanksgiving.
Oh, that'd be Thanksgiving, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So 2 hours on Thanksgiving. And then I guess they'll roll up the next two episodes the next 2 days is what I've heard anyway. But, so I thought we could start by talking about that. And that's kind of a wide open topic. I guess start by, have you seen the original movie, Let It Be, Gary?
Yeah, it's been quite a few years, but I have seen it. And what I think is awesome about the previews that I've seen, well, first off, it looks a lot better than what I remember that original movie being seen. Great, like I said, I haven't seen it for a long time, but it also looks like there's going to be a lot more happy moments in it, because from what I remember of the original movie, a lot of it was kind of a downer at times. I mean, the best part was when they got up on the rooftop to play those songs live. But the previews that I saw, I mean, that we've all seen, it just looks like you get to see a lot more camaraderie with the guys, and the color looks better. It's brighter. And I think it's kind of what we would all love to see, because I think, so much of that movie and, a lot of the stuff you heard the guys say at different times in interviews for a few years, it took away from the image. We like to think of the Beatles as being buddies and everything. And that movie, and the arguments that went on between McCartney and Lennon afterwards made you almost forget that they were friends. They were good friends and they were a band. And I'm hoping that this movie shows some more of that. I think myself, that's what I'm looking forward to, seeing those guys actually like laugh together, things like that. I don't know what you're anticipating the most, but
Yeah, well, Let It Be. I mean, the thing about the Let It Be movie is if you don't know what's going on, you're kind of watching it thinking like, well, what are they doing? Like, are they recording an album? Why are they filming this? Now they're in a different location. Now they're in a different studio, but we have no idea why. There's no discussion about, well, we need to move out of Twickenham studio and we're going to go back to the Apple offices. I mean, a pretty significant thing that was left out of that Let It Be movie is the fact that when they left Twickenham, they expected to go back to the Apple, the studios and their Apple offices. And Alex Martis, who they christened Magic Alex, who was a friend of John Lennon, he had promised them that there was going to be the state-of-the-art studio waiting for them when they got there. It was going to be like the 16-track, wondrous, amazing studio setup that he had designed. He said it was going to make like Abbey Road look antiquated. That's how modern the studio was going to be. I mean, and mind you, he was not in any way an audio engineer or anything like that. So they got to the studio and nothing worked. They didn't even have like barriers between like the instruments and stuff like that. It was just very like, he had like 16 speakers lined up, thinking like that was going to make a difference. And it was just, he had no idea like what the hell he was doing. And so they got there and realized it was this debacle. And so they had to bring in like equipment from EMI studios just to be able to record there. But like, they don't even talk about that in the movie. That's totally absent any discussion about that. But the thing I don't care for, I mean, there's a couple of things I don't care for about the Let It Be movie. Number one is the fact there's no narrative, so you have no idea what's going on. They're at Twickenham, looks like they're rehearsing some songs. You don't know, well, is it going to be with the intention of doing a live performance? Are they making an album? I mean, they don't talk anything about that. You just see them recording bits of songs, and Yoko's there, and then all of a sudden Billy Preston's on the scene. You don't know why. He's just there. They're in a different studio. They're recording some more tracks. And then there's no, I mean, not to my recollection anyway, was there any discussion about, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to wrap this up. We're going to go up on the roof. We're going to play a concert. And that, I mean, there's just no discussion at all about the fact that they were feeling their way through that entire project almost the entire way through. They're like, well, are we going to do a performance in an amphitheater in Rome? Are we going to do it on a boat? Are we going to do it in the desert? I mean, there were all these ideas that they had floating out there. Is it going to be a TV special? Is it going to be multiple concerts? I mean, these are all things that they were not able to agree on. And yet there aren't any of those discussions in the Let It Be movie. There's so much that, you know, if you've read anything about the Beatles or you know any of their history, I mean, things that you know about, that Let It Be doesn't really give you any, you know, context in terms of what's happening in that movie. And then they do the rooftop concert, and then like that's the end of the movie. And I, you know, I would never share somebody who either was not a Beatles fan or was kind of like, yeah, the Beatles are okay, because they just be bored. It'd be like, you know, this movie's boring. Why? What?
Yeah,
No.
that's exactly what I was thinking when you said there's no narrative in that original movie. And like I said, it has been a really long time since I've seen that movie, so I don't want to talk at all like I'm any kind of expert on it like you are. You know, I know you're a bigger Beatles fan and stuff, because when I saw the movie, you know, I maybe had, you know, 2 Beatles albums at the most at that time period. And so I wasn't as familiar with their history. I mean, you know, I knew some of it, everybody does. But yeah, it was very much a movie that, yeah, you don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes. And, you know, these few little clips that they have shown, you see the band members talking about, well, you know, we're not going to be ready for any kind of, you know, concert. We haven't played in forever. And, you know, they have a scene there where George Harrison says, I'm not playing, I quit. You know, I'm not gonna play live. And I don't know. When I remember what I remember the movie is so much of them being in the studio, and a lot of it just looking like, you know, they just didn't want to be there, you know. But you don't know that they have this sense of, you know, Jesus, you know, what are we doing? We're under a deadline. We've got to get this stuff done. And you also don't see as much of the goofing around. There was a little bit of it, you know, that I can remember, but not a lot. I'm really looking forward to this now, seeing this. And now I assume that, you know, it'll premiere whatever Thanksgiving night, and then it'll be there, like, so you can go back and watch it,
Right.
you know, for however long they leave it on there, which I didn't even realize I had Disney Plus, but I do. So,
And there'll be a DVD and a Blu-ray, and I mean, so it'll be available in a physical format. I'm hoping maybe, I don't know if it'll be before Christmas. That would be nice, but I don't know if it'll, you know, happen that quickly. But yeah, I mean, I think, and you know, some of it I wonder, was it because the Beatles would not let Michael Lindsay Hogg put a lot of that into the movie? Maybe they didn't want to come across like they were so directionless, or they couldn't make their minds up about what they wanted to do. And they didn't want the part about George leaving in there, which is another significant part. George left for almost an entire week. He left the band, and they were trying to coax him back. They had several meetings, and that's not mentioned at all in the movie. So I wonder if some of that stuff they wanted kind of like, it was like their dirty laundry they didn't want aired. And so that's why it was kind of a very bland, narrative-less kind of movie,
Yeah.
Which I'm hoping that this will go a long way towards rectifying. And I think the narrative, being that the Beatles were on the verge of breaking up and Let It Be was almost the last straw, and they weren't getting along. I mean, hopefully some of that we've read about that went on behind the scenes, allegedly, hopefully that'll be rectified, because I think they were friends. And I think, yeah, they were having some difficulty deciding, are we doing a movie? Are we doing a documentary? Are we doing a TV? Are we doing concerts? Are we just making an album? Are we going to do oldies? Are we going to do new material? Like all these things they couldn't make their mind up on. Hopefully they weave that into this documentary, make some sense of it, give some narrative, give some context to what happened, because the Beatles had just a few months before just finished the White Album, and then already they're expected to have an entire new album's worth of material and start recording and rehearsing it. And I don't think, mentally they were ready to not only start recording a new album, but do it in front of the cameras and then prepare for a concert that was going to happen. I mean, I think that was asking a lot of themselves. And I think people forgive them that. I think people would not be, well, those Beatles, they were, couldn't make their minds up. They were, directionless. Paul was too bossy. I mean, I don't think people would be that way, especially Beatles fans. I think they'd appreciate. And I think what this movie will do is hopefully, kind of establish that context, give you an idea of what's going on, let you in on some of those conversations that they weren't comfortable putting into the Let It Be movie, and show that they were friends, that none of the disagreements that they had broke them up. I mean, they broke up later in 1969. I know John said he wanted to leave after they recorded the Abbey Road album. But, I don't think Let It Be necessarily hastened the demise of the group, because I think what you'll see in the movie is they were friends, they were joking around, they did get along. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. It'll be very interesting. It'll be a fun thing to watch.
Well, the timing is great. And I realize they did it on purpose, but they just released that remixed and remastered version of Let It Be, and everybody's got that, recently. Yeah. So that's fresh on their mind. And now here comes this whole big documentary.
Which looks amazing. Like you said, it looks amazing. It's phenomenal. It looks like it was shot yesterday in like HD.
Yeah. Which is great, because the album sounds amazing. And now this movie's going to look good. Now, are there any songs on the original Let It Be rooftop concert that were left off of the original movie?
Yeah, because they did two or three versions of Get Back. They did two versions of Don't Let Me Down. Dig a Pony. They might have done two versions of One After 909. I'm not sure, but they repeated songs for whatever reason. They did like two versions or two takes, I guess, of the songs, and only one of each made it into the movie. So I don't know. I don't know if they'll reproduce the entire rooftop concert in its entirety on film, or if they'll be selective and just show one performance of each song. But yeah, that's another thing.
Well, I bet that is not uncommon for concert DVDs. I know I saw Sheryl Crow many years ago, and they were filming for a live DVD that they put out. It's the Come On, Come On one that she did, I think, off of the album that, had the Soak Up the Sun single on there. Anyway, she was touring off of that, and when I saw her, they were filming, and when she came back, she was done with the concert, and they came out and they announced, they said, okay, Cheryl and the band are going to come back out and they're going to do a couple of songs that they already did. And they go, so we want everybody to just, cheer like it's the first time you're hearing it and everything, because, evidently they'd made a couple mistakes or something. Yeah, I never noticed it, but they wanted another version of it. So that's probably what the Beatles did. I'm sure, there was something in there that they didn't like. So I'm on that video, by the way, people. If you ever want to watch it, you'll see me for about 4 seconds and I'm dancing.
I'll check that out.
Unless I show you where it is, man, you'd never see it.
Yeah.
I am down front, but I'm off to the side.
Well, very interesting. I'd love to see a still from the.
Yeah. I wonder if I can do that. That would be great. Okay. How about another topic now? We talked about that. One that we talked about. What we're both looking forward to a couple releases, and one of them is the new album by Robert Plant and Alison Krauss. What's this one called? Raise the Roof or something?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because the first one was called Raising Sand.
Yeah, I couldn't find it on Spotify. I could only find certain songs off of it. Let me see.
I'm curious what other people think about that. I'll be honest. On the first one,
Raise the Roof.
Raise the Roof.
Yeah.
The first collaboration one, which has been many years ago now, that they did. I wasn't a big fan of. Just because it was so mellow, very laid back. They had a couple of songs on there that had a little bit of darkness to it, which that's really cool. It's something that I am looking forward to this album, but I definitely need to go back, listen to the other one. I have to be in the right frame of mind for it. I'm such a big Led Zeppelin fan, and it has taken me quite a while to accept Robert Plant for what he wants to do now, for what he sounds like now, the type of vocals, the style of music that he wants to do. I just have to look at him as a artist who has different sides to him and everything. And I think I can go back. Some of the later solo albums I would also like to revisit, that I had kind of given up on. He does a lot of that real soft whisper singing at times, to where it's like, come on,
let loose,
in, dude.
Yeah.
Let loose. But I think now, I'm getting to that point. I'm as old as I am, that I can accept artists changing sometimes and appreciate what they're doing now, and not hold them to the same standards, that I had before, and really like what they're doing. Will I ever like it as much as, Physical Graffiti? No, but I don't like anything as much as, that. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I have to, I honestly, that's a plus about me becoming part of this vinyl community. And I think getting to talk to all these musical minded people who otherwise I would not have met, and them talking about music like this, and them talking about this Robert Plant album and different things. And it just opens my mind a little bit, which, kind of goes along with the original topic we were going to have tonight that we'll save. But I am definitely ready to listen to this album, and I'm going to listen to it with an open mind.
Yeah, well, T-Bone Burnett produced this album just like he did Raising Sand. And so if you know anything about T-Bone Burnett as a producer, a lot of his music sounds like it's the soundtrack to like a film noir.
Yeah.
You know, it just kind of got a subdued quality to it. It's not anything like classic Robert Plant.
No.
I remember I was like you, I was expecting like, okay, well, I'm interested what this sounds like. I was worried it was either going to be a lot of bluegrass that, you know, Robert Plant was somehow going to be doing, which was not the case. Or I thought, well, it'll be a heavy rock record, which Alison Krauss maybe has never tried before. So I wasn't sure. And it was just seemed like such an odd coupling for that first record, but it was, you know, something different, I think. I mean, I thought it worked. It's grown on me. At first, it was a little, I think like your reaction was probably like mine, where I'm like, well, this isn't at all what I thought. This is real kind of mellow and chill. And it's just, you know, like you say, Robert Plant is not singing like we know Robert Plant can sing. And there were some harmonies and things going on. But yeah, I know, you know, our friend Josh got the album today and he was raving about it. So
Yeah.
I'll definitely check it out on Spotify before I think about buying it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Regardless.
Well, evidently he said it's a double record, so I don't know how many. I feel like that might be something that the first album suffers from a little bit, because you know during the whole CD generation thing, there's probably too many songs on there.
Yeah.
For being that mellow, you know, there's probably one or two they could have cut off in there, because I know that was one of my big complaints was before I'd be listening to it, and it's like I'm having a hard time staying awake for this whole thing.
Well, and some of that is like, okay, is this the fourth song, or the fifth song sounded like the fifth song, and the sixth song sounded like the fifth song, and the third song, and there's just not a lot of diversity, I guess, you know, sometimes when you get into projects like this, and especially if you have a lot of songs on the record. So you know, we'll see. But I do like that first album. I've got it on vinyl, and you know, it's grown on me. But you know, hopefully this one will.
I think having it on vinyl helps. I listen to music better on vinyl just because of the way it forces me to sit and listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times.
Yeah, and I like when you have a lead off track.
Yeah.
Beginning of each side, and that sets the tone for that particular side. And what's the last track, and you know, things like that. When you're on CD, you just let it play, and there's not any interruption. And the first track and the last track, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it flows well together. But
I know. I'm trying to think of, you know, we were just talking here and trying to think of some other releases. I know there's some other releases out there right now that I can't think of. I know that Larkin Poe has some sort of live album, I think, where they might be playing a little bit with an orchestra or something like that. I'd like to have that. Well, you'd already done, you talked about it. I know Josh did a video on it. They're going to do a remastered version of Animals, which we're both big fans of that. I think everybody in our little gang is a big fan of that album. It's one of my favorite Pink Floyd albums. It already sounds great. I'm just wondering what, you know, a remastered version will sound like, and you know, what will they do with it? What extras are going to be on it? I don't know. You know, there's so very little live Pink Floyd from that era. I don't know if there's any from that era. So I don't know if they have any live recordings or thinking of putting on there. Who knows? Because you're talking about David Gilmour and Roger Waters having to agree on something, and that's not an easy thing to do.
we couldn't even agree on the liner notes.
No, exactly. Over stupid shit.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why we don't have it today. That's why we haven't gotten it released by now, is because there was a disagreement. David Gilmour took issue with some of the liner notes. He felt that they were too pro Roger Waters, I guess. And so he objected, and Roger Waters is like, well, I'm not taking those notes out. And then they fought. And then eventually, I think Roger Waters was like, well, if this is going to prevent the album from coming out, fine, you big baby.
Yeah. So he
Yeah.
finally agreed. All right, screw it. I'll take these out. Of course, I do like the fact that on his website, he released them. He said, okay, here's what it was going to say. This is what held up the album, folks. Was this right here. And when you read it, it was basically nothing. It amazes me that, these guys at this age hold this up for just nonsense. But I don't know if it's going to have extras. I would hope it would have something extra with it. I don't know. That's kind of a famous tour.
Yeah, well, they've already, they've done the immersion releases. They've done, they've repackaged all the Pink Floyd studio albums so many times. And on some of the expanded editions, like Wish You Were Here, they've got some live tracks. On the Dark Side of the Moon, they managed to pull down some live tracks. But for whatever reason, for Animals, they have not. I mean, obviously, The Wall has had Is There Anybody Out There? They've released that live album. But for Animals, I feel like they've got some quality live recordings from that tour that they're just not releasing because I think David Gilmour doesn't want to give Roger Waters the satisfaction or the income or just because that was definitely, a pretty heavy Roger Waters album. I think that was the first one where Roger Waters was definitely asserting his control, and the other band members had less, I guess, input. Although I think Dogs is one of the greatest things, David Gilmour ever recorded. But
I think that album has some great keyboard work on it too.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that the album was totally, Roger Waters' direction on it, but the other guys contribute a lot to it. They might not have written as much, or they weren't in charge of, the overall concept or anything like that, but they play very important parts in that album. I mean, Roger Waters led he was also the brainchild of Wish You Were Here and Dark Side of the Moon. As far as that goes, but they all contribute to it. So I don't know, that's a band that just infuriates me. I mean, David Gilmour is fine repackaging everything that of the 2 albums that they did without Roger Waters. We're on the, you just got that remastered version of
Momentary Lapse of Reason.
Momentary Lapse of Reason. Yeah, I had a mind blank that I talked about there. Now they've already remastered that thing once, and now they have a new one that you have. The first remastered version, I think, was just a matter of taking out certain elements, certain 80s elements of the album. That's the one I have. And then you have the newest one, which I imagine probably sounds better. As far as, I mean, my copy sounds good, but I thought the original copy sounded good as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't blown away. I mean, it sounds nice. Yeah, it sounds a little more modern. It doesn't sound as dated as some of the stuff on Momentary Lapse of Reason does. But yeah, again, I'm happy they did, but I would have been happier if, they had put out something, I don't know. I mean, something from the 70s, maybe done that with Animals or done something with Wish You Were Here, something a little different. I don't know. But, this will be the 4th time that Animals has been issued on CD. You had the original, CBS CD when CDs were first coming out, and then they did a remaster in the 90s. They did a remaster as part of this campaign where they redid all of the Pink Floyd albums. I forget what the campaign was called, but they reissued all the Pink Floyd CDs and digipacks. And they came out with the immersion versions of Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, and Animals. But yeah, I don't know.
Now, what does immersion, what is that?
So immersion is basically, they include a bonus disc or two of, in some cases it's alternate. Like I was very disappointed with what they did. Well, I would say very disappointed, but with Dark Side of the Moon, they had some live tracks as part of that. I was hoping they would have included some demos. You know, there's very famous demos you can find on the internet, acoustic demos of Money and even Time. But they include, like, I'll show you, I have the wall immersion set. So I can show you what that looks like.
This would be a good time to take a bathroom break, folks.
Yeah. So this is, you know, it's in a big box.
Oh, okay.
And out of the three, I think this is probably the most value for the money because there's not a lot of, well, there's 5.1 surround sound, and here's a disc of Blu-ray, and it's like, I'm just going to play it on my CD player. I don't need, maybe there's audio files who have all that stuff, but, you know, so basically, what you get in this set is you get the original album, then you get the Is There Anybody Out There album on here. Then there are 2 discs of works in progress. So a lot of early takes, demos, some songs that they did that didn't appear on the Wall album. And some of them are very brief. Some of them are snippets. Some of them are like the full versions, but very interesting to listen to. As you can see where the Wall started from when they started recording, and, you know, obviously, you know, what the eventual version sounded like. And then there is a 7th disc, which is a DVD. It's an audio, it's got The Happiest Days of Our Life, or The Happiest Days of Our Lives, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2, which are promotional videos. And then there's a documentary called Behind the Wall, which is 50 minutes long. And then there's an interview with Gerald Scarfe, who did the animation. But so it's got like this foam eggshell thing here. And then you pull it back, you've got coasters. These were things, it's in this little bag here, and they're like these little marbles or something like that. And they look like the Wall. There's like 3 different ones. No idea like what value this is. I have no idea what you're supposed to do with it. Like, I guess it's cool. I don't know. There's a little booklet of credits. No pictures, just credits.
While you're showing all this stuff, let me ask you, why do you think, and we kind of touched this on one of the other episodes, but why do you think it seems to be a hip thing right now for people to shit on that album?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you got people that are really heavily into the 70s Pink Floyd, where they were, you know, kind of progressive rock. I think people might see the Wall as too commercial. Maybe it's been overplayed on the radio and people are just tired of it. I have no idea, but I definitely want to continue that discussion. But this is some kind of bag. I've never opened it. I don't know what it is, but it's
that's the Wall. That's a bag of some
bag.
Like inside there.
Yeah. I haven't opened it. These are the whole thing, the whole thing, none of these sit comfortably in here. They're just thrown into the box. So they're like shuffle, you know, moving all around. These are what the discs look like. They're just in these regular sleeves.
That's the lyrics.
Yeah, they do. Like they've got the, I mean, they've got the lyrics in like a poster, you know, like the original album, I guess. No, the lyrics were on the sleeves, right? On the original album. This they're on a poster.
They're on the sleeves.
Poster. Yeah, it's like the White Album poster here with like all the lyrics on it, and then there's nothing on the back. It's just all the lyrics are in poster form, which again doesn't make any. So I, you know, as I'm digging in here, I'm like, oh, you know, this is really kind of stupid. Honestly, like there's this. So there's this envelope here that you get. It's called Immersion Mark Fisher called cards. No, I guess these are like for the stage show. These are like designs cards or something for, like, I don't know if half this shit is upside down or not. I have no idea. You know, it's like
That's kind of cool though.
I mean, yeah, it is. They're like sketches of what the stage show is going to look like. So I mean, you know, I guess that's kind of cool. But this is what I'm talking about, like immersion, like the stuff that your average fan would have no interest in. It's just like over the top ridiculous. I guess you've got.
Have you ever seen the movie?
Yeah. You've got these collector cards. There's no button side, unfortunately, but I mean, you know, tiny cards. What am I going to do with these? No idea.
Those look like good stocking stuffers.
Yeah, well, it could be. And then, I mean, like, what is this? Immersion memorabilia, which is like a ticket what the show would have been, which I guess is kind of cool. Backstage pass.
Hopefully you get to use that.
Yeah, but I guess the idea is that, you know, you put the album on, you take this box out, you lay on the floor and just roll memorabilia and like, ooh, I'm totally immersed in Pink Floyd. Rub it on your face, whatever you want to do with it.
Some of those things were kind of cool and some of them don't really make sense. I don't get the marbles, but
yeah, I don't get that either. There's this book which has got some photographs in it, but
is that of the stage show there?
Yeah, it's which I mean,
cool.
Probably have the same photographs in the Is There Anybody Out There thing. So, you know, and then there's this book, which more photographs. I don't know why they didn't just put them in the same book. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, you know, I mean, I guess it's cool, but
yeah, I will say seeing those pictures makes me think of when I saw Roger Waters do The Wall, and that was probably one of the more amazing concerts I've seen.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I don't know that they've ever released the Wall concert on like a film, like an entire performance of the Wall as it was back in 1980, you know, when they went on tour.
No, I don't think they have.
See,
I mean, I'm sure there's bootlegs out there, but there's never been an official release.
Yeah.
You've got, like you said, you've got the Is There Anybody Out There album or double CD, but
right. So I don't know. Yeah, probably it was a waste of money. I don't know. Like I got it kind of cheap on Amazon, so I figured, what the hell, you know. But yeah, why do people hate on it so much? It seems like anybody who does a Pink Floyd ranking video, it's never in anybody's top 5. People just,
I don't know. It just seems like it's I feel like it's almost like a hip thing to do, you know, because, you know, people want to talk about, you know, especially like they want to go into the really early Pink Floyd, you know, pre-Dark Side of the Moon, and into the long instrumental stuff and everything like that. And they want to talk about, which I'm not saying I don't like that stuff, because I do. I love metal. That's another Pink Floyd album that I really like. You got Adam Hart Mother, but I don't see how liking that makes you want to insult the wall. I don't know what it is. I feel like there's this part of it. I feel like there's almost this backlash against Roger Waters for some reason, which I don't get that either. I realize the guy's been an asshole at different times in the past, but if you don't get the fact that what he had to do with the shaping of Pink Floyd, and you can't diminish his role in that band. Some people just want to go on and on about David Gilmour. It's like, if it wasn't for Roger Waters, you never would have heard of David Gilmour. Right. He would have been in some other band that, maybe would have done something, or maybe he'd have been somebody, they say, oh, you ever heard that guitar player? Oh yeah, he was pretty good. They made a few albums or whatever. I just don't think he would have had the direction to the greatness, But I also think, Roger Waters, if he wouldn't have had David Gilmour there to fill out that sound, same way. I'm not saying that, but anyway, I just feel like people look at The Wall as so much done by Roger Waters, and the fact that it doesn't have all these really long instrumental interludes, that they dismiss it. They dismiss the fact that all those little songs that they want to shit on because they don't like them, Vera, whatever. They dismiss the fact that those were all pieces of a puzzle telling this really cool story. And you can't take those songs out of it. And I just think, to me, I look at that album, I look at the lyrics, because I love music, obviously. That's the most important part. But I also like lyrics, well-written lyrics. And I feel like The Wall, the fact that he came up with all that and the band put it together, is just amazing. You're not going to see anything like that again.
Yeah, no, I think if not for Roger Waters, I mean, number one, there would have been no Dark Side of the Moon. And I think, Pink Floyd, for as much as Metal was a great album, wasn't selling a whole lot of records outside of England. I mean, there were certainly some fans that they had built up a following from their live shows, but they certainly weren't in the mainstream, and they certainly, were not going to be rich rock stars continuing to record albums like Metal. And so I think Roger Waters stepped up, and he came up with the concept for Dark Side of the Moon. He wrote all the lyrics, came up with some of the music, and Rick Wright and David Gilmour, and to some extent, I think Nick Mason was contributing at that point. But I think after Dark Side of the Moon, and they said as much in interviews, like, well, now we've accomplished everything we set out to accomplish. We have this best-selling album, we're selling out concerts, we're famous, the rock press loves the album. I mean, they achieved everything that they set out to achieve with that album. And then it's like, well, now what do we do? And I think, Roger Waters, while the others, I think, were sort of like, well, I don't know what we do. And, the others weren't really strong songwriters. They could come up with ideas. But Roger Waters was somebody, he could write the lyrics. He could come up with a demo of a song. He could come up with a concept for an album, whereas the others, it's like, I'm sure, Richard Wright was like, well, I have this piano melody, maybe you can do something with it. Or, Nick Mason, well, I've got this drum pattern, maybe. And David Gilmour was, well, shit, I don't know, I'll solo on something, I guess. But they just, the three of them, I think, were content to, because it was a path of least resistance, is to just let Roger Waters say, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. I mean, they had come up with Raving and Drooling and Gotta Be Crazy, which eventually transformed into Dogs and Sheep on the subsequent album. But, you know, they had come up with those songs and they had actually tried them live in performance on the tour after Dark Side of the Moon. And when they went into the studio, it was going to be like, okay, well, it's a no-brainer. We're just going to put Shine On You Crazy Diamond on side one, and then Raving and Drooling and Gotta Be Crazy on side two. And I mean, David Gilmour was happy to just do that and call it a day. You know, it was kind of like the lazy way out. Like, well, we'll just do that and that'll be good enough. And I think Roger Waters had enough sense to be like, well, no, that's not going to cut it. Like, people are going to expect more than just 3 songs on an album, especially, you know, when we just had, we kind of broke away from the mold of albums like Atom Heart Mother and Metal, you know, with Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, we got to give them more, and we got to, you know, you got to push the envelope a little more. And, you know, to his credit, it worked. Wish You Were Here is probably my favorite Pink Floyd album. And I know a lot of people feel the same way, or it's at least top 3 for most people. And then Animals is many people's favorite Pink Floyd album, which again was Roger Waters saying, okay, I've got a concept now. We're going to retool Gotta Be Crazy and Raving and Drooling, and we're going to tie it all together thematically. And, you know, the others, as much as they bitch about it and say, well, Roger Waters was a tyrant, and, you know, he wouldn't listen to us, he wouldn't let us contribute. Well, you know, as Roger Waters has said, that's because you guys didn't have anything. Like, I asked you guys, okay, what do you got? And they're all just kind of like, oh, I don't know, I've been sailing on my yacht for the past month. I haven't had time to write anything. Or Nick Mason, I've been racing cars. I've been too busy fucking around with my race cars to write anything. And David Gilmour, you know, obviously, you know, as is demonstrated by the fact, Momentary Lapse of Reason and Division Bell, a lot of his, you know, he had to collaborate with the writing on those. It wasn't like he just came out like, oh, see, I'm Roger Waters, I can write songs too. Well, no, you can't, Dave. You can't write lyrics to save your ass. And, you know, the first album that they turned into the record company for the Momentary Lapse of Reason sessions, the record company, you know, this doesn't sound a fucking lot. Yeah, it doesn't sound at all like Pink Floyd. That David Gilmour had to, you know, kind of turn tail and slink back into the studio and try to come up with something that sounded more like Pink Floyd and less like a David Gilmour solo album. But yeah, I mean, that's been the knock against Momentary Lapse of Reason. Yeah. Basically, you know, just a David Gilmour solo album, just like Final Cut was a Roger Waters solo album.
And that, you know, that's a point of, you know, with Roger Waters, as, you know, great as he is with lyrics and coming up with concepts of songs, he also does very bare bones songs. You know, he needed David Gilmour to flesh out those songs. You know, I mean, sometimes he can write those really bare bones songs and it works perfectly. But you can't have a whole album of that and keep your interest. So that's why, you know, neither one of them were as good without the other. I think with Division Bell is probably the closest they came, you know, to making a Pink Floyd album that was really, really good. I like Momentary Lapse of Reason quite a lot, but I think Division Bell's better. It's a better album. And I think it has some good lyrics. Once again, not, like you said, not written by David Gilmour, written by his wife, a lot of it. But as good as those 2 albums were, just think if you would add Roger Waters into those albums, you would have had a couple more classic Pink Floyd albums.
Well, just like I think Final Cut would have been a much better album if you'd had more David Gilmour, you know, instead of one vocal on Not Now, John. If he had more, you know, in the way of contributions. And, you know, I think he deliberately kind of stepped back because, you know, he felt Roger Waters, you know, wasn't listening to him, or didn't want to butt heads with Rogers. He was tired of just that combative atmosphere in the studio. So I think he kind of withdrew. But if Roger Waters had, I think, invited David Gilmour to be, more of a contributor to that album, I think that would have been a much better album, a much better follow-up to The Wall. Just like I think if there had been some Roger Waters for a momentary lapse of reason, if they had been able to work out something where they stayed together, I think that would have been a much better album. And somebody said once, and I think it's, largely true, is that, Roger Waters would be very content to take one melody and put a bunch of different lyrics on them and make an album out of that. Whereas David Gilmour would be very happy to come up with a bunch of melodies and use the same lyrics on, each of those. That's just kind of how they were. And,
I like the final cut, but I also totally agree that, even though I think that's a good album, I think if you'd have had more contribution from David Gilmour, and if Richard Wright was still in the band, adding something, I think that album could have been really good, because I think it definitely has some powerful moments on that album. There's certain moments on that album that I think are very forceful, very powerful. And if you could have added the whole band in there, make it an actual band project, that could have been a very, very successful album. But as it is, it's too bare bones. It's not enough Pink Floydish to make it, up there. I know a lot of people just hate that album, and I get it. I understand why they do. To me, it still has some great moments on it that managed to carry it through for me.
Yeah, I was never happy the fact that they took When the Tigers Broke Free and kind of shoehorned that into side one on the remasters that they did recently, because as much as I can appreciate that song, it was never a part of that album. I think I don't know why they stuck that on there, but it just sounds so out of place after you've listened to the final cut, the original version of that for so long, and now you got the remaster where they just stuck When the Tigers Broke Free in the middle of side one. I've never cared for that, but I do like the final cut. I know I'm in the minority like you are on that. I enjoy that album, not as much as Animals or Wish You Were Here, Dark Side of the Moon, obviously.
No, not at all. But it's
still
got moments, it's got the Fletcher Memorial Home on there, which I love that. I think that's a great song. But do you remember when they had on MTV, they had a video for When the Tigers Broke Free?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. There was a video EP that came out to coincide with the final cut album, and I don't remember if that was on there or not. But I mean, they did have some videos for that album when MTV was in its infancy that did get played a little bit on there. But I don't know. It's a decent album. I like Roger. I'm a Roger Waters guy, so I appreciate it more than I think other people do. But it's like your parents. I love David Gilmour. I love Roger Waters. I wish they would get along. I wish they could just put aside the differences. Give us one last Pink Floyd album. I mean, Roger Waters was a founding member of Pink Floyd, as was Nick Mason. And I get Roger Waters quit the band in the early 80s and was trying to undermine and undermine is definitely a euphemism for what he really was trying to do, but was trying to undermine Pink Floyd going forward and was trying to sabotage their efforts to continue on with the name Pink Floyd. But I think Roger Waters even now will probably tell you I was a bit of a dick.
Yeah, he will. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm able to get past that whole narrative of him being that way, is because he's come out and said it. He said, yeah, I was a bit of a jerk back then. And he also said how he was very humbled. He said, he said, you talk about really, killing my ego. He said, here I was, playing my solo stuff. I'm playing over here in a smaller theater, and here's Pink Floyd playing stadiums with half the songs I wrote on there. And he goes, and I have to play a 5,000 seat arena. They're playing to 25,000 people. And he said, yeah, he said that kind of, got me there and everything. And he even, to me, it seemed like, the way I heard him talk in interviews and stuff, like when they did that Live 8 thing, I think he definitely wanted to get them back together and at least do a tour. And David Gilmour wanted no part of it. So,
well, and I think David Gilmour saw, like, look, we've shown we can be successful without Roger Waters. Screw you. I don't think he got over that resentment that he felt about Roger Waters.
Well, and I am sure that there were plenty of people who saw Pink Floyd in the 80s and the early 90s when they did those two big tours. They had no idea who the hell was in Pink Floyd. They had no idea that the guy that wrote a lot of those famous songs was not in the band. All they knew was Pink Floyd. Yeah.
Where's the flying pig?
Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Look at these lights. So, whatever. But
but and David Gilmour, he's got a better voice.
Yeah,
the one with the smooth guitar playing that people love. Roger Waters has that kind of nasally, his voice is not.
And that's something that hurts him. That's like his I can't think of the name of it now, but that last solo album that he put out a few years back. I like that album, but at the same time, the fact that it's Roger Waters singing every song gets to be too much. Especially now that he's older, right?
Yeah.
I mean, David Gilmour has lost some of his voice too, but Roger Waters, who was never the great singer to begin with, but had a very unique, cool voice, he's lost some of that. So now he's got this more cranky old man voice, which I like in certain aspects, but to carry a whole album, not as much.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there.
Let me throw this topic at you real quick. What's a band that you want to get some more albums of?
Judas Priest.
Judas Priest. How many do you have now? Do you know?
I've got 3. I've got Sad Wings of Destiny, Stained Class, and Screaming for Vengeance.
Well, those are 3 very good ones. So at least you've got really good albums of theirs. So that's cool.
I've got Sin After Sin on CD, but I know there's a lot more. Like I'd like to get British Steel. I'd like to get Hellbent for Leather. Some of those early ones too, I think. But how about you?
Wishbone Ash. That's a band that I don't know how much you've listened to them, but I've got a few of their albums, and they're very different. They're different. Like, Yes, or somebody is different. You're not sure how to describe them in a way. Now, some of their songs are pretty basic, just, blues rock, but they also get very progressive and kind of jazzy at times. And I definitely want to get more albums by them.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard too much by them. How would you characterize their music? Is it progressive? Is it hard rock? What?
Both. They kind of change. I only have like 4 albums of theirs. So, I'm not an expert because they've been around since like 1970.
Are they like Uriah Heep?
Uriah Heep, that's another band. That I want to get more albums of. I have some of their, I really like those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a band I definitely want to get more of. And, the great thing about Uriah Heep is, you can usually find some albums of theirs in the bins fairly cheap. It's just a matter of waiting until you find a good copy of it. All the stuff that I have of them has been used, except I did get that record store day of the Magician's birthday, that redone album, new. So I do have a new copy of that, and I think I gave the old copy to one of my sons, and I like them. Yeah, you're right. How much do you have? Much of theirs? Or?
I've got Demons and Wizards. That's the only album that I have by them. But yeah, I mean, I'm always on the lookout for a Magician's Birthday, or what's that one? Look at Yourself, or something. The one with the mirror on the cover.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I definitely like that one. I think I want to get Salisbury. I've seen it before and I just haven't picked it up. You always got those albums that you see, and then when you have it in your head, I'm going to get that album. That's when you can't find it.
Yeah. Yeah, King Crimson would be another band I would put in there, like another band I'd like to get more of, because I'm only familiar with, In the Wake of Poseidon and The Court of the Crimson King, but really not much beyond that. I know, our friend Chris Prophy is a big King Crimson fan.
Yeah.
And I know so many people who, if you're a progressive rock fan, King Crimson is definitely like top 5 prog rock bands.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. That's another band that I need to get more. Well, as far as prog rock, I need to get more albums by Yes. I've only got, I think, 3 of their albums. 2 or 4. Anyway, I need to get a couple more, and I need to listen to the ones I have a little bit more. I want to get that new one that you've got, The Quest.
Yeah.
That there's a new release that I want to get.
Yeah, I was not impressed with the 2 albums with the 2 John Davison albums that had come before, Heaven and Earth, and then Far From Home, or whatever the one before that was. But this one, yeah, it's got melodies, like catchy melodies, and there's this one song on there, and there's an orchestra on it. It sounds like the Moody Blues a little bit. They've got Mellotron. Each song is one where it sticks with you. It's got a great melody about it. It reminds me of a lot of early Yes. So I was very surprised, much in the same way I was surprised with Deep Purple's Whoosh and Power Up by AC/DC, which I wasn't really expecting of either of those, and then was very pleasantly surprised. So it's the same. I feel the same way about that new Yes album.
Oh, that's great. That's a good endorsement, because I love that Deep Purple and that AC/DC album. That AC/DC album kicks ass.
Yeah.
That's a great album. I listened to it not that long ago. It's the first time I listened to it for quite a while, and I'm like, yeah, this thing is good, man. I mean, it's just your basic AC/DC stuff. Yeah. Nothing that amazing about it, but it's just great, rock and roll. And
well, and I don't think anybody expected we were going to get another album out of AC/DC, and all of a sudden there it is, and damn, it's fantastic.
Now, so you got The Quest. I'm somebody that, when there's like a heritage type band and they put out a new album, and even though, yes, it's not, the original band that you remember, I'm usually still of the mind that I'm likely to give it a shot.
Yeah, I agree the same way, just because I'm a huge fan of Steve Howe, and Steve Howe is all over this new album. I mean, you definitely tell he stepped up to the plate on this one, and maybe knew it was going to be their last studio album, because of course they're not getting any younger, and who knows, how much time they have left as musicians. But it's definitely, if this is the last Yes album, which if something happens to Steve Howe, I hope it is the last Yes album. I hope they're not going to turn into, like some bands have where there's no original members and they're just,
Yeah.
trying to cash in on the name. But
Well, we just mentioned Uriah Heep. Their last album, which the name escapes me now, but basically, all they have is the guitar player left, and I can't think of his name at the moment. But that last Uriah Heep album, I'd recommend that to people. I think it's good. It really rocks.
Mhm.
I mean, it doesn't sound the same as they did in 1973, but it still has a bit of that essence. It's a little heavier now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's just something about it that I like. And there's, like you just said, with Steve Howe, still working with them. And it's good to see these bands live, whether it's all the original members or not, if it still has somebody in it, because, as we have learned over the past few years, you don't know, they're not going to be around forever. All these guys are dying off. So, see them while you can.
Exactly.
What another something I wanted to ask you while I'm thinking about it. Another band that I probably want to get some more stuff from, and I talked to you privately about this, is Genesis, because I really don't know much about Genesis. What is your impression of the Steve Hackett era, like Genesis Seconds Out?
Yeah, I love it. I don't think Genesis missed a beat, honestly. After Peter Gabriel left after The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway and they came out with Trick of the Tail, there was not a loss in quality for me. I think Trick of the Tail is a great album. I think Wind and Wuthering, which is the other studio album with Steve Hackett, I think is fantastic. I mean, and to their credit, I mean, when you lose, their primary songwriter and their primary personality who carried their live act with all the theatrics, the fantastic costumes that he had. I mean, that was a huge loss when he left the group. And the fact that they carried on as if nothing had happened just goes to show, what a great band they were. And I love both the Steve Hackett studio albums. I think Seconds Out, you got, Phil Collins singing on some of the Peter Gabriel era stuff, like the Musical Box, and sounding like a pretty good facsimile of Peter Gabriel. I mean, there's no Peter Gabriel except for Peter Gabriel, but I mean, Phil Collins can sing some of those songs pretty convincingly. But yeah, I love that. I love the Steve Hackett albums.
Well, I'm curious because, this kind of ties into what we're talking about. Older bands, not going to be around forever. I know that like next year, early next year, Steve Hackett is doing a tour where he's playing that era of Genesis. I'm not familiar with it, but there's a part of me that I don't, I kind of hate to not get into it. And then like a year down the road say, oh man, I really like this stuff. I wish I would have went to that show. Oh, now he's dead, or, something like that. Or, how when we saw the Monkees, I saw that Robin Trower is going to be there. Robin Trower is somebody who's been around forever. Never seen him. I'm kind of getting more into some of his music. I want to see some of these artists before they pass away, and I'm trying to get into more of them, so I'm familiar with them, because I don't want to get into them later and then realize I missed out.
Yeah, or I could have seen them when they were, still in good voice or still able to play like the old days or whatever. But yeah. What did you think? I'm not an Iron Maiden fan, but I'm certainly, I know very little about Iron Maiden, but what did you think of their last studio album that just came out this year?
So on that, I haven't even heard all of it. I never bought it yet, because it's a double album. It's pricey. I would like to get it on vinyl. I almost picked it up on CD, but I didn't. You know, I've listened to a lot of stuff online on it, and I don't know. The last few Iron Maiden albums have been hit and miss with me. I just feel like they have a tendency to go on too long with their songs now. For whatever reason, they have become more and more of a progressive band, but at the same time, you know, when I think of progressive rock, and when you listen to, like, you know, yes, Closer to the Edge or something, or Close to the Edge, you know, the music goes on and everything, but there's a lot of changes in it. When Iron Maiden tend to go on with their songs, you know, it doesn't change a whole lot, and they have these long repetitive choruses to, you know, I still really like Iron Maiden, but I just can't get into their newer material like I did. I mean, I loved it way back when they started to go more progressive, like with Seventh Son. But Brave New World is great. I love that. But I don't know. At some point here within the last 10 years, their songs they need to shorten them. You know, it's like they need a producer or something that says, all right, that's enough. You know, cut it off. You know, let's make this song shorter to where it has more of an impact. You know, they don't have enough parts in their songs also where they stop and they have like a dramatic pause or something. Like Judas Priest is good about doing that. Iron Maiden, I don't know. I still love them. You know, what I've heard of the album, I like it, but I can't say I love it. You know, it seems to be too much dragging on. You know, I don't get why they want to do that. But
Yeah, do you think they think that's what their fans want, and that's why they do that?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's what they want to do, because I think they kind of play by their own rules, which is great. You know, and maybe I'm in a minority of this. You know, I don't know. I kind of get, you know, our friend Chris Brophy did a review on it, and I hadn't even heard that much about it, but his review kind of made me think that it's going to be a lot of that same type thing at that point before I even listened to it. And I agree. He liked it, but I could tell that he thought the same thing, that a lot of those songs just kind of go on too much.
Well, shifting gears into an entirely different genre, but I'm going to talk about two artists here. I'm going to ask you to talk about one, and then I'm going to talk about one. But two artists that came out with a new album. One was not all that unexpected, and that was Duran Duran, came out with a new album just recently. And one that I think shocked everybody and took everybody by surprise, which was Abba. And I know you're a big Abba fan.
Mm-hmm.
So just real quickly on the Duran Duran, I was not a fan of Duran Duran's previous album. I thought they were selling out. I thought they were trying to go very mainstream. I thought they were pandering to people who wanted them to sound like Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift, you know, just like all that shit on Top 40 radio. You know, they just felt like they had to keep updating their sound. And this last album is very retro. It sounds like classic Duran Duran with a, you know, 2021 twist. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I was not expecting to. I was listening, expecting to roll my eyes when I heard it, and I think it's a fantastic album from what I've heard of it. So I was very, very pleasantly surprised. How did you feel about Abba? Have you heard the new Abba album, and what's your impressions of it?
Yeah, I just finally got it this week. I pre-ordered it, and for whatever reason, it took forever to get to me. And I have been listening to it. I definitely like it. You know, I plan on doing a review after I listen to it some more. It's the fact that it's been like, I don't know, 40 years since they put out an album. It's just, it has such a feeling of, I'm amazed, you know, like when I first heard it, it's like, oh my God, it's Abba. and the fact that, they're all, I don't know, in their 70s. And the women, I mean, they sound, more like later day Abba, as far as that. They don't have the real high pitched harmonies, like they did on Arrival and everything before that. But it sounds more like something from the Visitors album. But it's still, I so far I'm amazed at how much they can still sound like old Abba. There's a couple songs on there that I find really dorky at the moment. Maybe I need to hear them some more, but there's also some moments on there where, yeah, it's great. I'm impressed. I will say that. The Duran Duran, by the way, I've read a couple things, people, and it sounds kind of like what you just said, that people are kind of digging it. So.
Yeah, and I'd really lost. I thought, okay, well, they've lost the plot. They're not going back. They're just going to keep putting out this shit album after album, and I was sad about it. And then I heard this album, and I heard one song, and I'm like, oh, I actually like that. That actually sounds like the follow-up to Seven and the Ragged Tiger or something, or follow-up to Notorious at least. And then I heard another, and I was like, well, that sounds good too. And I've not yet heard a song off there that I don't like. So I hats off to Simon Le Bon and company. I'm glad that they pulled it together and kind of.
And hats off to them for still making new music.
Yeah.
And not just saying, well, we'll just keep touring off of the albums we did in the 80s. And it's like, because they know they're not going to sell a whole bunch of albums, right? They're going to sell a limited amount. People will steal most of it that want to hear it. A lot of people will have no desire whatsoever to ever listen to it. So the fact that a band like that would still make an album just shows that they have artistic integrity. They want to make new music.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to be able to have this conversation sometime about U2, saying that, oh, the U2 album is amazing. It sounds like Joshua Tree, or it sounds like War. It sounds like Unforgettable Fire. But I don't think that's going to happen. I get pissed off whenever I hear Bono singing something new, because it's just like, shut up, go away. I mean, I love U2. I love early U2. I love everything up to, I would say, Octung Babies, Europa a little bit. All that you can't leave behind. But
I don't care about that. Zooropa and before is the only U2 I care about. Really, anything after that is just so damn boring in my mind, at least.
Well, and I just feel they've gone to, like, they're just so far away from who they used to be that there's no going back. And I'm never going to get the U2 album that I want, that I'm hoping for. It's just going to be more shit that, they're trying to sound contemporary. They're trying to stay up with current trends. They're trying to be relevant. I mean, there was a song, they actually had the audacity on one of their albums. I think it was Songs of Innocence or whatever, one of those songs of something or other. And they actually name checked Joey Ramone. And that song had absolutely no connection to the Ramones. I was kind of excited, like, oh, okay, maybe they're getting back to their roots. Maybe they're going to be channeling some of that post-punk qualities that they had.
We're going to go back to October.
Yeah. Nope. It sounded like absolute dog shit, like everything they put out since the 90s has, to my anyway.
No, I agree. I just recently, I rebought, I found a copy of Unforgettable Fire, and it's been a long time since I've heard that, and I played that, and I'm like, that's right, I used to really love this band. This is why.
Yeah.
Because now the albums they put out now, I can't make it through. I can't make it through an album, man. I mean, I listen to them, I'll buy them, and I listen to them, and I'm like, yeah, this is just boring. It's just boring shit.
I'd rather listen to nothing than listen to I mean, seriously, I really would. And it pains me to say, and I hate that that happens. I wish they'd have broken up after Octung Baby. If they'd broken up after Octung Baby,
Oh man, they'd be legends.
yeah, they'd be revered, I think. But I mean, it's one of those bands that they cheapen their brand. You know, it's like, oh, U2's coming out with a new album. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like who's really looking forward to a new U2 album?
Right.
You know, if you are, I'd love to hear it in the comment section, but I doubt I don't hear anybody like, when's U2 coming out with another album? It's been 5 years. I mean, I'm like every year, like, please, U2, don't put out a new album, please, for the love of God, break up. If you got to, that's fine. You know, if you got to do you want to do Joshua Tree in its entirety, you got to make money, you got to go on tour, but just, please spare us another catastrophe of 12 songs that are so bland and so boring.
Yeah.
And I'm worried, like, Bono's, as his voice ages, he's gonna be auto-tune.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't heard him for a while, so.
Yeah, I'm hoping, like, yes, on New Year's Eve, I'm gonna be toasting another year without a new U2 album. Yes.
Well, Jeff, this has been fun.
It has.
It has. I don't know if anybody, I highly doubt that anybody makes it to the end of this video. But if they did,
But we have fun.
we had fun, and God bless anybody that has watched this whole thing, and we love you.
We do.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do this again sometime, Gary.
Yes, I agree, Jeff. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. And hopefully next time, it won't be next week because we got Thanksgiving, but maybe the following
Have
week.
a happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving. And we will catch up with you in a little while, and maybe we'll have Chris, maybe JC, hopefully Aaron.
Miss you guys.
Back together. Yep. But everyone else, take care.